that I'm extremely optimistic about the future of this state, largely because of the folks in this room and the beliefs that we hold and the power that we have as a collective. But you can't get there without also calling out where we are and where we've been. It's important to acknowledge where this state has slid to, what is slid away from, and also where our opportunity moments are to make it better, right? And I think I would hope that all of us in this room want to make it better. Y'all need to want to make it better because when you graduate from here, you want a good job that you can flow into. You ought to make it better because some of y'all one day may have kids who you want to matriculate through the K-12 system in this state, and you want it to work for them too. Y'all ought to want it to be better and to have a governor who acknowledges climate because you want this place to be here 20 years from now. Right? You want to be able to drink through water. There are a lot of Republicans who have qualities of which I admire. This president doesn't seem to possess many of them. But there are a lot of Republicans who have fidelity to what they believe. They work hard for what it is that they believe, even when I disagree with it. They feel passionately about it, and I believe are in it for the right reasons so far as their ideology and their belief systems will take them. I'm extremely appreciative of the roles of both former President Bushes, who during the Obama administration were very, very slow to engage and to criticize the sitting president. And I think that's what's helped Obama and his post-presidency also kind of withhold fire, even though we want him to engage. He understands what that means. I disagree strongly with the education agenda of Jeb Bush. I fought against it. I led marches against his agenda. But I don't doubt for a minute that Jeb Bush believes wholeheartedly in the mission that he's trying to pursue. I don't think he's bought and sold to one side or the other. I think he believes he's on God's mission around public education reform. I think he believes it passionately. I disagree with it, and I have a different view of it and a different vision for it, but that's different than what we're experiencing in the body politic today, where we have a president who is willing to make immigrants feel unwelcomed, who is willing to give cover to known and blatant racists, who is willing to pick on and malign some of the most helpless in our society. There's nothing admirable or respectable and everything disagreeable about that posture, and I don't make apologies for it. So there are absolutely places and ways in which we can work together, and I look forward to finding that level of common ground across a whole range of issues. What I won't compromise on, and where we won't give ground, is on our values and what we believe, and the ability that we've got a lot more in common as a people than what separates us. And what we ought to be looking for are those through lines that bring us together rather than this politics of otherizing. Because you're not like me. You're the cause of why things aren't going well for me. It's because those brown people have that you don't. Right? That's what we have devolved into. And that's what we got to get back out of. I appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to thank you for coming out here tonight. My name is Valerie. I'm from Jacksonville. It's Republican. It's Republican controlled, but the grassroots movement is strong. So my question is, so one of the current movements that's going on right now is the push for a police accountability council in the form of 100% civilian elected, no ties to the police. Elected from the people, and able to have the power to hire and fire police and review cases of misconduct. But one of the barriers right now is the police bill of rights. What are your thoughts on pushes for police accountability and the police bill of rights as it stands?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the question, and I think we first have to acknowledge, and I think everybody in this room probably recognizes that the job of our law enforcement officers is probably some of the more difficult that exists in society. And many of them work every day putting themselves, their lives on the line for many of us. And I know that there are enough images floating across the internet of bad conduct and bad behavior. I've seen it, right? I've spoken out against that. And I think we have to continue to do that. But we also got to make sure that we put it in its proper perspective around the nature of this job and how critical the role of law enforcement is in society and in our communities. I also believe in full accountability for the work that we do, especially when the law gives you the power of God on your waist belt. That you have the ability to take a life, and that the burden of proof around whether or not that was the right or the wrong decision on behalf of an officer always tends to bend in deference to law enforcement. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying that's a heavy, heavy responsibility. And with responsibility comes a lot of accountability. And this movement to push for greater accountability in the system is one that I'm fully in support of. I haven't been as aware of the independently elected boards. I've heard of citizens-appointed commissions by elected officials, mayors, city councils, that kind of thing. So that actually is a little newer to me, that the idea is now to independently elect. However communities choose to do it, I think that it makes sense. I understand that there are real efforts to the whole Blue Lives Matter thing, of which we don't have to debate all of that this evening. And what I'm hoping won't happen on the right under Republican leadership is that we have this over-correction, that quite frankly we extend what is already in law, take it to its further extent and make it that much more difficult to call out bad behavior when it exists and when it shows up. We have to have the ability to call out bad behavior, to see corrective practices happen within departments at the moments in which they happen. And one thing that I'm a huge advocate for, is training around cultural competencies. Too often we have people who lack diversity in their experience. And so my action or my raising of my voice or how it is that I might project myself is interpreted as a threat. When if somebody who looks a little different than me did the same thing, it isn't a threat. They're just communicating. And a lot of that has to do with an absence of cultural competency. The fact that just because we look different and may come from different neighborhoods, or maybe you even patrol in a more difficult neighborhood, doesn't put me in the box where I've got to prove that I'm not a criminal. And there are too many people who are waking up every day, parents and kids alike, who are terrified that their kids have to prove that they deserve to live. We have to speak to that, and we have to speak honestly about it. But we also got to be partners with law enforcement in this effort, because I know too many law enforcement officers who also want to weed out the bad players, because it brings a stain on their profession, who they are, and what they represent. But this movement around accountability is real. We got to make it real. And guess what? You can be pro-law enforcement and pro-accountability at the same time. I'm so sick of you have to choose. If I'm asking you for accountability, I can't be for the job that you have to do. Well, I'm for the job that you have to do, but I'm also for holding you accountable. Anytime you have the ability to take life under the cover of the law, you ought to be responsible for answering to a higher set of accountability. I appreciate the question, and wish you well as that effort continues. I'm going to go to the back, and then I'll come back forward to the front. Yes, sir.
Hey, so one thing that I don't know if you mentioned or not, but private prisons in Florida, I think that incentivizes, criminalizing people. What's your vision for that?
Yeah. I don't mind saying I'm 100% against private prisons. I don't believe they belong in our state. But I'm also for an improved system of criminal justice in this state, to include at some levels decriminalization. We've got folks who are sitting in jail 3 years because they failed to meet certain bond pieces, or they failed to pay certain parts of a fine. It's basically debtor's prison. And because they couldn't pay it, they're sitting behind bars in our sheriff's offices, in our jails, and then in our prisons. It's a system that just keeps on giving to itself and damaging society, harming reconciliation, harming people, families, neighborhoods, communities in the process. So our public system isn't perfect, but we certainly shouldn't be creating and standing up and propping up a privatized section of our criminal justice system, which frankly then spends money lobbying to get more private prisons, to see more people locked up, to keep their clients flowing through the doors, right? You get the picture, which is why you bring it up. It's a cyclical process that has to be interrupted, but there's a lot cyclical about our process. Private prisons being one part of it, but we've got to address criminalization, we've got to address decriminalization, we have to address, frankly, over-penalizing folks for non-violent offenses. In our community in Tallahassee, I started a program, a restorative justice-based program called Community Connections. And for our young people, our kids, who are first-time juvenile offenders, instead of having to go before a judge and a court of law and being told that they've committed some crime against the inanimate state of Florida, they go before a community panel. They go before a neighbor, go before the school principal, or maybe the local pastor, maybe the victim, maybe the victim's family, and they get told how the actions they did harmed us, the community. They know what community is. They know what Ms. Jefferson, who sits in the rocking chair on the corner, is, right? They know who she is. They don't know who the state of Florida is. They ain't touched the state of Florida yet. And so what we've learned in our program during its 6 years of operation, the normal system of recidivism in this state for juvenile offenders of the same group that I'm describing, about 40% of them within 6 months go on to recidivate. And our program, 96% of them never go on to recidivate in that 6-month period. What we know is that it works. But we gotta have leaders who recognize that crime and justice is more than just locking people up and throwing away the key. In fact, it's very little of that. It's how do you repair the harm to the community, help the person see how it is their actions impacted the community, the people they really do care about, and then put them on a pathway to recovery so that they don't go deeper into the criminal justice system. That's beyond your point around private prisons, but I just wanted to say that, and I know you know this, that this web that we've woven around the criminal justice system in this country, and if you haven't read it, would strongly recommend Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow. Very, very powerful read and will blow your mind. If you're not woke, you will become woke on this issue. It's an important. Yes, sir.
So, okay, I have 2 questions. One, so I noticed that earlier you were talking a lot about protecting immigrants. Like, what kinds of policies or what are you planning on doing as governor to protect immigrants, and like, because like with the president that we have and everything, like I've heard that there are like police and like stuff and like border patrol going all over the country, school to home to home, school to school, business to business, like just like and just like deporting people just because they're not originally from this country. So what policies do you have? How do you plan to address that issue?
So I'm very, very pleased to share that my city is a welcoming city. We do not turn our police department into ICE agents. They don't serve that function. That's not what we're And we're lucky that our elected sheriff in my county has also said that his deputies are not ICE agents, and that if you want to come and you want to pull one of them out of his jail, you better have a court warrant to do so, right? Because that's not our function. As governor, first of all, I think it matters what we say, right? We can't have governors that deride immigrants or folks that they think look like immigrants. Show me your papers on the street. If somebody asked me for mine, I couldn't produce my birth certificate. We moved a lot. My mama don't have it. I got right to get that. Well, we also have to stand in protection of, and some of y'all may be familiar with this, but DACA, which allows folks, many cases, America, the United States, the state of Florida, over 100,000 folks who benefit from DACA in this state, maybe even some in this room, who don't know another country but the United States. Don't know another state than the state of Florida. Don't know another county or city than Ocala. And they played by the rules. They have made good grades. They have applied and gotten accepted into colleges and weren't even sure that they could go because of their status of documentation. And now we've got something like 14 Republican attorneys generals around the country that are writing to Attorney General Sessions and to the president of this administration saying that they ought to do away with DACA. And if they don't, voluntarily, they plan to shop this around to a court, likely in Texas, that will strip away DACA in its current form and make it unconstitutional, right? And I sat down just the other evening with dreamers. One of them is on their way into a PhD program, another one is on her way into law school, and 2 others are about to graduate with their baccalaureate degrees. And they're terrified around losing the protections that are offered by DACA. Well, I plan to stand firm behind DACA if elected governor of this state. I also plan to stand firm around in-state tuition for those individuals. But what we really need, y'all, is a permanent solution on this immigration thing. We know we're not about to deport 20 million people. We also know that those 20 million people are integral to the U.S. economy. Talk to the Chamber of Commerce. They may not say it out loud, but they know the truth as well. It would be detrimental to this state, to this country, and it ain't real.